Awkward listeners, thanks so much for joining us once again. I think we say we are excited almost every episode, but I, in particular, am so happy that we have this guest on with us today. We tried to get together before, but the Wi-Fi gods were a little bit against us, and I'm pretty sure I made it really awkward the last time I introduced her, so I was saved by the Wi-Fi gods. But Kat and I have been on this roll the last few episodes to talk about neurodiversities, but I feel like we might have shifted a little bit to personal diversities and just being successful both personally and professionally and what that looks like when you're just being yourself, which is why Kat and I are so happy to have Meg McKean with us today. Welcome, Meg.
Thank you, Dustin. Thank you, Kat. I'm very excited, just like you are, to have this conversation on our second try. And those that don't know, I'm traveling right now doing the digital nomad thing. And so Wi-Fi has proven to be one of the biggest challenges, having a steady connection and one of the most important things. So thanks for the grace.
So where are you right now
So as of this moment, I am in Eastern Kentucky. I'm on in a very rural part of the country on a farm, and I'm in a little apartment that's adjacent to a neat old farmhouse, and it's providing lots of peace and serenity after what's been a pretty hectic 6 weeks of travel for me. So by the time our episode airs, I will have moved on, but right now this is exactly where I need to be. So
That's so exciting.
I definitely want to explore that in just a little bit because I've been since the last time we talked and then learned that you were doing this like roaming in your car kind of situation. I'm like, how does that work? Especially at our age, how does that work? But you are the host of Bound and Determined, and you said that you were excited to be. Are there any other ways to introduce a podcast other than I'm really excited to have some I feel like we're getting stuck there.
Yeah, and I think that's a testament to a lot of the word choices we have available to us. I'm grateful, I'm blessed, I'm humbled, I'm honored, I'm inspired, it's how are you going to start your social media post today? And I think what we're all getting to is something similar, which is just an appreciation for those who show up and tell their stories, and in doing so, help others to feel a little less awkward and a little less alone and a little less clumsy, because life is all of those things right now from my lens.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I mean, do we need less awkwardness though? I kind of feel like it's the 2021 vibe.
Yeah, no, obviously I'm here for it, and I know you are too. So I love that.
There's so much power in being able to share each other's stories. And that is one of the things that I am okay, I'm not going to use the E word, but so eager, that's another E word, to share. One of the philosophies that I've really tried to embrace over the past few years is a quote from Maya Angelou. There's no greater agony than an untold story inside of you. And especially with all of the isolation that we've experienced over the past year, all of the division that we've experienced in the social and political climate over the past few years, there is so much power in being vulnerable because it gives us a chance to connect on those things that we do have in common, as opposed to focusing on and fighting over all of the things that we don't have in common. So thanks for being on that journey with us.
Yeah. And thank you for holding this space to have these conversations. It can be a lonely road when you decide to open yourself and expose your vulnerabilities. And so to meet others who are in a similar place and working through that discomfort and the learning that goes along with it is really powerful. And I think it's a gift that we have as women to be able to build connection and deep connection quickly. And I think it's one of those things that we don't always honor and leverage as we're navigating our lives and our careers. So it's a really curious moment in time. I think more than anything, we're craving humanity and humility and honesty and integrity. And that's my thing. I've learned long ago it's exhausting to be anything else. So
you said it's a lonely road.
Yeah.
Does it have to be though? Or is it, when you said that, like the immediate thought that came into my head is I'm finding that it's not a lonely road, that I'm making it a lonely road basically is kind of what just popped into my head because I feel like if I just connected to you, excuse me, connected to you or connected to the person sitting next to me and went, "Oh my god, I'm so glad you're just as weird as I am." They'd be like, "Oh my god, thank God." We're just allowing ourselves to be lonely. Is it really lonely?
Yeah, I think it's getting less so, but I would challenge this is my 21st year in the industry.
Yeah.
These are
Yeah.
not conversations I would have been having. I mean, podcasts weren't even a thing
Mhm.
10 years ago, at least in the, everyday way that we're consuming and sharing information. I grew up in the industry in a time when you left your personal life at the door. And I think
Mhm.
a lot of women who have reached a certain milestone tenure wise in our industry did grow up in the industry that way, where you leave that stuff that really fills your heart and makes you who you are. You leave that at the door so that
Mhm.
you can show up and process paperwork and meet deadlines and crush your goals. And I think it's a really, the loneliness can come when you're sitting on the sideline with a story to tell, but you don't have the support, the encouragement, the avenue to tell it. And so I think these conversations become even more powerful because they show people the way. And I know you're very much aiming to accomplish something similar, which is we need women who are in the middle of their own mess to tell their stories. We need the experts, right, who have reached the pinnacle of their goals and their career milestones, but we also need the people who are in it to come forward and to expose those vulnerabilities because that's where we connect.
Mhm. I love this mission statement that you have of especially connecting women together, women supporting each other and holding each other up. I mean, you've been in the industry just as long as I have. Have you experienced a time in your industry where that was not the case? Where I know for a long time there's been this idea of women being catty towards each other. Is that something you've experienced?
I have, and I'll confess I've been that woman. I
Hmm.
have been that woman and I'm not proud of it. I'm proud now to have different tools and different sense of who I am and how I want to show up in the world that I can be successful on my terms and also support other women who are right there with me. And that's
Hmm.
a really powerful shift that I had to make for myself because I do think the industry still has a very competitive edge to it. And I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful on the good days that we're trending in the right direction and I know that we are. Change doesn't always come as quickly as I would like it, of course, but that's what, what I'm here for and that's what I'm hoping to accomplish by walking away from the very traditional corporate roles that I've had and pave my own path doing this work. So we'll see. To be determined. What can I ask what you all think? What's your experience been? Have you felt I had a guest on my show, she used the term queen bee syndrome, which I found fascinating. I hadn't heard that term before, but it really exemplifies that idea that women who achieve a certain level of success don't look over their shoulder and
Hmm.
help the women behind them on their own journeys because it was hard
Hmm.
for them and therefore it should be hard for everyone.
I think we're all aware of this to some point, but it might not be in our frontal lobes, if you will. And it was after I started listening to you and becoming a fangirl, and you talk about so many different aspects of, how we hide ourselves and how we need to bring ourselves forward. And the difference is, you're right. That we're coming into the insurance industry, not trying to sound cliche here, just repeat stuff that everybody's already heard before, but the old stale pale male situation. All right, getting rid of that. The industry is aging, as well as the rest of the workforce is aging too. It's not just the insurance industry. We're coming out of the baby boomer generation into the Gen X millennial situation. The Gen X's being a lot smaller than the millennials, and so we're going from this much older workforce almost into mid 30s, early 40s workforce. I grew up in my professional life having especially in the digital age. Facebook is where my life started, right? MySpace is actually where it started. That's really, taking it back. But then it got into Facebook, and now for the younger kids, Facebook is outdated. So it's Facebook is the place for millennials to be, if you will, shifting over to Instagram and all of that. But that was our personal lives. We were still trying to figure out how much of ourselves should we even put. And so there became this, you see the perfect pictures of everybody. Everybody had the perfect pictures. They had the perfect smiles. They had the perfect filters. They had the perfect family, the perfect kids, the perfect everything. And then there started to be this shift on social media like, well, this is actually the real me. And you see a mom with a bun up in her hair and her kid is hanging off one side. And so we're still not wholly there on social media that, but it's that way for me in my professional life too. That's the way I grew up in professional life. I was kind of stuck between the baby boomers and me trying to figure out what a millennial is in business in general. And so I've got these qualities of professional persona and personal persona. And for the longest time, and I'm still kind of stuck there, I don't friend anybody that I'm connected with professionally on my social media pages. LinkedIn, whole different story, right?
Mhm.
That's personal to me. But why am I hiding that piece of myself?
Mhm.
Why don't I want to let work in? Like, what's the risk there? I don't think I've figured it out yet, but that is the weirdness. So yeah, we are experiencing that. I'm still experiencing that. Doing this podcast, being with the National Alliance, doing more networking, talking to more people has really made me question all of that because it's more difficult to have two different personas when you're it's hard, especially when you're in your own house, okay? You're working remote and your professional life is I don't go to an office anymore, so there's not this delineation of when I get in the car, my personality is shifting towards the
Mhm.
office. It's I tried to shift my personality from the walk to that door to this door. And that was, by the time I hit the train table outside my office door, put your business hat on. But that's more difficult today because of working remotely. And so it's, yeah, I'm questioning all of that right now.
And I think too, I can completely understand that need to compartmentalize your life. When I started my career, I was a young single mom, and I hid my age for so long in the sense that I tried to let people think that I was older than what I was, because I felt like, well, as a young woman, is anybody going to take me seriously? Are they going to respect my opinion? I started out underwriting and trucking insurance, and it was important to me. I didn't want anyone to think of me as this young girl, this little girl in the industry. And so I compartmentalized that for so long. And then being in offices, moving into a corporate environment with other women, there was still this sense of, how do I get taken seriously? And the only way that I can do that is to be seen as this buttoned up, polished. I mean, I still wear pantyhose under my dresses because I'm was all about being prim and proper. And
Right.
I don't know where that, if it's been a societal shift in allowing us to be more authentic. Thank you, Brene Brown, for introducing so much of that. Or if it's just when you get into your 40s, you just don't care as much about your priorities shift, and you start to understand what's important. But yeah, I found that once I started opening up more, I started connecting with my female colleagues in such a better, more profound way. Instead of going in and feeling like we were all compete, it almost felt like there were only a finite number of spots for women to sit at the table, and it was like we had to compete for those spots. So,
I'm going to be open and vulnerable here for just a second, Kat. I've never told you this, but I'm
okay.
gonna this gonna make it a little awkward. But Kat and I are developing a relationship through this podcast, right? The podcast, I'm already getting a little nervous just thinking about it. The podcast has been something that's been wholly uncomfortable yeah, in terms of, do I bring out this professional persona because I am representing the National Alliance? Or do we go with this awkward insurance and be who it is I am, right? And where's the meaty part of that? So one of the ways to hide myself basically was like, I need somebody with me. And Kat, like I said, I'm from personal lines. Kat is from commercial lines background. I'm agency background. She's carrier background. So it's like this mix of same industry, little opposites. This is going to be perfect. I want to invite Kat to be a co-host. We're both really weird people, and what a better way to have an awkward podcast than to bring Kat on. So we end up down in Austin, and we're doing videos or some podcast intros and stuff like that. And we get invited out to dinner. It was spur of the moment thinking, Kat, to be honest with you, and how this all came about. And it was in my head, and I'm like, I asked you first, just so you know. So it just happened in front of everybody. I'm like, Mitch, I got an idea. I would really like Kat to be a host with me. And he was thinking about it at first, very flat. I was so nervous and my stomach dropped because his face wasn't changing. And then it changed. And it was like, this is a great idea. Here's the vulnerable part. I went back to my hotel room and I thought to myself, what the hell did I just do? Like, am I comfortable with this? Am I comfortable being with another person on the podcast? What if she's better than me? What if it's all this self-doubt came into, I knew it was the right decision. And I still know it's the right decision. And I love we're developing this relationship. Like I said, I'm getting nervous because Kat, your face is very flat right now. And so I'm like, she doesn't like what I'm saying. But I came home from that visit in Austin. I was like, Scott, my husband, what did I do? What if this is no longer my podcast? What if I'm no longer, like, I was just starting to get comfortable. What did I do? I should have given it one more season. He's like, Dustin, go to bed. Because when you go to bed and you sleep, you wake up outside of your head. Right now, you're going down some deep rabbit holes. Go to bed. So it's like, ooh.
Well, and it's the thing. I mean, that's the thing. We, as women, we always have to remind ourselves we're not in competition with each other.
That's where I lost track of what that story was even about. It's not about the. Thank you, Kat.
This is not like elections for prom queen or anything. We're here to support each other, and I think we got really lucky in our roles. Just the entire academic director team. We each have our own specialty. Yeah. So we can each shine in our own right, because of our unique backgrounds and differences, and support each other. And I have to say, I think you've been my biggest advocate and comfort since I've joined the National Alliance. Oh, yeah. So thank you.
You're
for
welcome. Well, I didn't intend for it to go that way, but that's where I was going. Is that we're in this space, and that's what it was when I first thought about it. I need somebody to support me in this journey, and I want to support somebody else too.
Speaking of how to make people better and support others and have such a positive impact in their industry, I want to know how a chief confidence builder goes about doing that.
Yeah. So before we get into that, you said that you have 21 years in the insurance industry. You're a National Alliance CIC designee. We're talking about Meg here, not Kat. So you're, like I said, you're a National Alliance CIC designee. You've recently been named Hot 100 2021 by Insurance Business America. And your role title, you created adjunct advisors. And I want you to speak about that. But the title you gave yourself is Chief Confidence Builder. And right now, insurance is really driving into insurtech. And it's creating numbers, lots of numbers, more numbers than we've ever had before. It's more algorithmic than it's ever been before. It's more metric and database than it's ever been before. And there's a pitch. As a matter of fact, you're talking with Olivia Schmidt and her doing Be Atomic and the neon thing. It makes you feel a little prickly because it's numbers. How, these people are turning into numbers in an AMS system And I feel like we're on a dangerous drive here to possibly forget the person sitting behind the desk. But Meg is a chief confidence builder. She's looking beyond the numbers. She's the antithesis of this drive, in my opinion, towards using more numbers to be productive. She's using confidence to be productive. So yeah, let's talk about what it means to be a chief confidence builder.
Well, we'll start with the title. So, and I just have to say, sitting and observing the banter between the two of you and sorting out, Dustin, I know which are some complex and feelings and thoughts that you're having about what you're doing and why you're doing it and how best to go about accomplishing it. It's a beautiful mess, and I think it's an important part of the journey. It's so cliche, but I think it's okay if we don't know. I think it's okay if we put our hand up in the air and say something's not right and I need a little lift. And maybe this is the lift I need, or maybe it's something different, but that critical first acknowledgement within yourself that something isn't right and this isn't how you want to show up in the world, or that you think you might want to do it in a different way is really beautiful. And it's an important thing for us to think about. We keep qualifying saying as women, as women, as women. It's a people thing, right? I want to live in a world where we can put our hand up and say, I need this right now, and I need it without shame and without judgment, but because this is where I am right now. So I had to say that. I can't help myself, but the chief confidence builder, the best way to get to the C-suite is to build your own, period. It's the path I believe I was on when I left the agency world. It was part of my career aspirations as a younger professional woman. And in making my different navigational turns in the industry, from underwriting to underwriting leadership to sales as an agent, I realized that there were some undercurrents about the way that we sell insurance that fundamentally I didn't agree with. And it has some to do with ethics and some to do with practices and principles and things like that. But my focus and my concern really stemmed from seeing really good human beings either being taken advantage of by clients or by employers in their course of selling insurance. And so the work I do is focused on the people who sell insurance. More revenue is the outcome because people who are engaged with their work and engaged with their clients and engaged with their organization are motivated. But the core of what I do and why I do it is because something's been missing, in my opinion. We should be able to be proud of the work that we do. We should be able to go to the proverbial dinner party. This is like a classic, what's the best way to clear the room? Tell them you're a life insurance agent, right? And we get that reputation honestly, but I don't think it's warranted. I was never that agent, right? I take what I do exceptionally seriously. I'm a professional through and through. I know my stuff. I'll tell you, an underwriting background makes you a really good agent if you can figure out how to leverage that knowledge. The confidence piece is where it all comes together. An agent who really knows her stuff doesn't have to worry at the table that she's going to be outsmarted. We don't have to spend our time and our energy trying to convince people that we know what we're talking about, which is where we're one-downing ourselves all the time. And we can literally sit at that table and be who we are. And we said it initially, make those connections which are where people want to meet us. Insurance, as we all know, is exceptionally confusing. We've almost built the industry to be confusing. And I think in a way to protect the agents who don't know what they're doing, we just throw a bunch of jargon at the client and hope it's covered. And that's, you know me, I don't mince words, but there's a lot more of the not good ones than the good ones. And so my focus is on helping the good ones, the fundamentally good ones who believe in the work that they're doing and are committed to a career here, find a path to success in a way that works for them, regardless of the noise that's going on around them.
I think you did a really good job of capturing a frustration that I had recently. I was at a dinner with some other industry professionals and people that I just think the world of and that I respect so much in their careers, but like you said, there's an element of, and one of the reasons why I've always been hesitant to go into the sales arena is because I felt like I know my stuff, but I don't want to promote myself. And there's still this culture where we have to promote ourselves. And I was at this dinner with, these wonderful people, but it almost felt like everybody just wanted to highlight their resumes and outdo each other with how long they had been in the industry and how much they know. And almost in my head, I'm thinking, you guys don't need to do this. Your resumes and experience speak for yourself. I just want to know you. And I, as an introvert, the small talk, the shop talk just wears me out. But I want to connect with people. And I was almost frustrated because I felt like I didn't have the opportunity to connect because there was this sense of we just need to promote ourselves. And my inability to promote myself, I think, is what's kept me back. It's what's kept me from pursuing certain opportunities because I just felt like I couldn't keep up in that arena.
Well, so I'll challenge you on that a little bit. And I feel that my first job in the industry was as an intern in college. And long story, exceptionally short, I think I was the first student in the history of the university to quit an internship. It was direct sales, literally calling people trying to sell homeowners insurance over the phone. It was not for me. With my little sociology degree and my desire to help people, telemarketing was not for me. And I vowed then I would never sell insurance. So the irony that I'm a licensed agent and I'm encouraging other people to choose this career path is not lost on me. It's been a messy, messy path to get here. Like I cannot emphasize missteps in terms of jobs and positions, realizing on day one, oh my goodness, I've made a horrible mistake, staying places too long, staying not long enough. There's certain lessons you just can't learn until you take that leap.
As Kat was talking, then as you were talking, sometimes things just happen in your brain where it's almost like an aha moment, like the light is trying to turn on, but it's not quite there. And I'm struggling, like I'm like, pull the chain. Just, the light needs to come on. Kat, you were saying you were sitting at a dinner talking with industry professionals. They're highlighting their years in the industry, their experience. Here's where this I'm going to struggle to get the words out, I think. And Meg, you're talking about how you were an intern and it wasn't for you, which I feel that. And then I'm also thinking about the recent experience that I had being at the Gamma Iota Sigma conference for college students. And I got the opportunity to sit down and do some resume reviews with them. And there's one little girl, one young lady, sorry, that sticks in my mind. She sat down, she was real timid, but she was very candid and open. And by this time I had figured out the questions that I needed to ask the kids. I said, "What about your resume do you not like? What makes you nervous?" Because they're here to hand their resumes out. And they literally had a printer sitting over there for them to change the resume, print it out, and get to work, right? I didn't realize that at first. And then I did. And I was like, oh crap, we're doing this right now, right here, right now. She says, "I don't have any experience. I don't have an internship. Everybody else has it." She's nervous because she's surrounded by these crazy amazing students. Like, this is going to go against what I'm fixing to try to say, but I've been in the industry for 15 years and these students were intimidating me. Okay. So I'm sitting here like, oh my God, because it's fresh on their mind. And they've been sitting in these college classes where, everything is like fresh right in their faces. And yeah, I've forgotten it 15 years ago. So they were intimidating me. And I'm like, oh, sweetheart, here's what we're going to do. Because you've had experience here. And I think she had been a student RA or something like that. Under her jobs that she had listed on her resume, she had skills in there. Let's get rid of that. I want you to get rid of that. We're going to move that down to what we're going to call transferable skills. I don't want you putting skills on your resume. I want you putting transferable skills on your resume. Under these job titles, I want you to put what you got out of that experience, how that experience impacted you And if you're thinking about it, I know you can't do it here because it's the conference and you're going to be handing this out to a lot of different employers. But if you're applying to a specific job, I want you to even edit that if you can about what that experience might mean to the employer that you're applying to. You got something out of that more than these one-liner skills. Now you're going to take those skills, you're going to move them down to transferable skills, and you're going to keep that as a live part to your document too. And you're going to change that depending on who you're applying to what skills you learned from these jobs and how those transfer into the job that you're applying for. Okay. Great. She did that. She went into the next room, which was mock interviews. She sat down and she killed it. And she came out, and this was not on purpose. I was standing there waiting for a colleague. She comes out and she's almost in tears. She said, "Thank you so much. You gave me confidence that even though I don't have an internship like everybody else does, I had value, basically. I killed the mock interview, and they asked me for an interview, like a legitimate interview tomorrow." I'm like, "Oh my God, that's amazing." See, I told you, you don't need, because I started my conversation with her. I was like, "Honey, I was a waitress when I got into the insurance industry. I didn't have an internship either. Okay." So when you're saying, Kat, that you're sitting at a table with people saying, "I've got this many years, I've done this, I've done that." Meg, you're saying that you didn't even like your internship and you quit it. What's going on in my head right now is every time we introduce ourselves to do something, even here at the National Alliance, if we're teaching, we get up and we say, "We've had this many years," because there's this, I don't know if it's antiquated yet. That's where this aha moment is not quite clicking for me. I don't know if it's antiquated to build your credibility with your years in the industry. Just because you've had 15 years in the industry doesn't mean you learned anything, doesn't mean you're an expert at anything, doesn't mean you've actually got something decent to say. So is it time to stop saying, "We've got this many years in the industry"? Is it time to sit down at the table, at the dinner table, Kat, instead of going, "I've been in the industry this many years, I've written this book, I've written these articles, I've done this"? Is it time to just sit down and just speak your truth? Just speak what an impact either the industry has had on you or that you've had on the industry, and not in a self-serving kind of way. That's this light bulb that just kind of started flickering on for me as you were talking and Meg was talking. And then this experience from the student conference, like, is it time?
I love that. Now, how can we put that shift into motion?
Right. So Meg has this thing. This is what attracted me to Meg. I saw some videos on LinkedIn about imposter syndrome, and she's probably beat this horse to death, but it's a horse that keeps living. So I feel imposter syndrome every freaking day. I've got the 15 years. I've got degrees. I've got designations, but I don't feel any more like an expert than I did the day before. And every day that I do something, and honestly, compliments are the worst to me because I'm like, I don't think I deserved that. Imposter syndrome. Meg, I really want you to briefly, if you can, unpack, because I think so many people need to hear it.
Yeah, it's totally a thing, and there's been some discussion around the topic of imposter syndrome, not necessarily in a positive light. That is it really a thing, or have we made it a thing? The research, well, and I think anecdotally, so I speak purely from my personal experience and the research I've done, which includes a lot of reading, but also a lot of conversations with other women on their own professional journeys. And so I am not a mental health professional. I have a degree in sociology, though a lifetime in insurance. So you can do the math, connect those dots. But imposter syndrome fundamentally is this idea that the success that you've achieved, which you may or may not even see for yourself, came to you by accident or by luck or by timing, not because that you've done the hard work and put in, whether it's the time, because a lot of what we do in insurance is putting in the time, literally sitting at the desk, underwriting the files, over and over and over again, adjusting the claims to build that muscle memory and give us that credibility. That is still the industry that we work in. I'm here for the change. And I'll add anecdotally, and then I promise I'll come back to the imposter syndrome piece. I think one of the things we need to do as women is stop saying, I've been in the industry for 21 years, but I started when I was in preschool. Because ageism, we all do it because there's shame in age. We talked about this initially. I'm 43. Will I be so comfortable saying I'm 53 or 63 or 93? I don't know. But right now, good grief, I earned these years and these gray hairs and the life that I've lived up to this point. And I happen to have been working for a couple decades as well. And I want to embrace, and I know that this is a different conversation to have with a 21-year-old woman and a 65-year-old woman, because our experiences are exceptionally different. The places we are in our careers are very different. But to answer your question, Kat, what can we do about it? I think we need to start normalizing our experience here on the earth. It is what it is. I hate that cliche, but I cannot speed up time. I don't want to. I cannot erase total chapters of my life that maybe didn't go the way I would have hoped. I can't do that. None of us can. Nobody's getting out alive, right? Sorry, I hate to break it to you. And so can we create dialogue that is honoring where we are in this moment, sharing our reflections and our lessons and our learning, and also the vulnerability that comes from, I don't know all the answers. And that's been one of the things that I've had to work really hard. I thought at 43 that my life would be all mapped out, right? Literally the husband and the kids in the suburbs and the white picket fence. And I don't even have a house right now. Like I'm not really homeless, but like I live out of my car, and thank goodness for Airbnb right now. But as a little girl, would I ever have envisioned that would be my life? No. I think a lot of bringing this back to imposter syndrome, it's not a woman thing. I'm really encouraged and proud of the men who step forward and say, I feel this too, because there's strength in acknowledging that we're on this journey together. 70% of the population acknowledges having had or having imposter syndrome currently. So look to your left, look to your right, do the math. Those who have achieved a highest level of success, Tom Hanks, Michelle Obama, people who are masters in their field, admit to feeling imposter syndrome. One of my hangups right now is that we're calling it a syndrome. It's not necessarily a medical diagnosis. It's not something that you can cure. The fact that there is no cure is one of my favorite aspects of imposter syndrome, because that we have this in common and that we are feeling these feelings gives us support and gives us strength and a place to talk about it. And it lets us know that we're human, that I can do hard, scary things, and I can put a picture of myself out on social media for the whole world to see and judge, and sometimes judge in the comments or maybe behind my back. And I can live through that. That can be okay. And that, we talked earlier about self-promotion and Kat sitting at that dinner table and everyone talking about their resumes and all the things that they'd accomplish. If you look at my social media and my website, and it's self-promotion. It has to be. I have to let the people in the world who need what I have to offer know that I exist. And my job is to create a pathway for them to find me. It's exactly what I teach the agents I work with. Create the path. Don't make it so hard for these people who need you. And that's not a self-serving, I've got the answer to all of life's problems. I absolutely don't. But when someone sees something, whether it's social or on the podcast or the newsletter that I write, and that light bulb goes off, and it's usually a woman, she says, oh my gosh, Meg gets me, then all that quote unquote self-promotion has worked. The self-promotion we've been taught to do in our industry is, let me do a 15-minute coverage video on LinkedIn and tell you all about cyber liability. No, please don't do that. Please don't do that. I don't want to watch that. And I'm like 90% of my connections on LinkedIn work in the industry. Most of them are agents. And my feed is really boring. So when someone decides to step outside of that box and really show me who they are, I get really excited because that's what we're craving to bring this back around.
Right. I think you do it totally different though. And that's why that's why I think this light bulb is stuck for me right now. Like the light bulb hasn't come all the way on, but there's something flickering there because you do it totally differently in self-promotion. You do it in a way that's not self-serving but connects with others. There's a difference in the way that Kat
Mhm.
was just explaining what it felt like for them to go through their resumes. There's a difference in I guess there's a place for everything, but you do it totally differently. So, I guess that's where your chief confidence building skills come into play.
And I have to say, thank you for doing it differently because I mean, Dustin knows, and I've said this over and over again. I I'm horrible at LinkedIn. I don't get on it. I don't use it. I've now had to put some time in my calendar to make sure that I do use LinkedIn. And part of the reason is because it's just such a feed of here's a video on cyber liability, here's this or that, or all the realtors and other agents. And I'm like, this is not always adding value to me. So I have really shied away from it. But just, I mean, even going along this morning and just recently connecting with you, it's such a breath of fresh air to see real people and to be able to have an opportunity to uh, know what Meg is doing and not what Meg is selling. So
Mm.
thank you for that. And if we could create that culture, then yeah, just so many better, more meaningful connections.
Well, and thank you, obviously, that for the compliment. That's the person that is exceptionally important for me to be 100% of the time. And you'll see stretches where I'm really active on LinkedIn and then times like I've just came out of where I'm not on there at all because life or feelings or doubts have crept in and that's not the place for me to be in those moments. I'll say this, I have been cautioned by people whose opinions I value highly that I shouldn't be sharing in that way because I'm not projecting an expert perspective. That as a sales coach, I should be coming in with the 10-step system to quadruple your business overnight with the guaranteed results. And I made a choice very early on when I decided to go down this entrepreneurial path. If it doesn't feel good, I'm not doing it. And not that it doesn't feel good because it's new and scary and uncomfortable, but because it doesn't align with who I am and how I want to show up in the world. And I don't have a system. I don't. I never used one. I don't think there's a magic bullet. I just don't. I think there's a lot of information out there that's really helpful. What I love about what I'm able to do now is I give people a place to unpack it all, to try some things, hold them accountable, figure out what works for them and the style that works for them, and take that good advice that we might have gotten from a mentor or a more senior member of our team and make it work on our terms. And so I have to balance this how I need to be an expert, right? I need people to hire me. I'm not,
Mhm.
this is fun, but like I'm a one-woman show over here. I've got obligations and bills to pay, so to speak. And so it's important to me to show others through my example that it's possible to show up differently on these platforms. I still have boundaries. There are still things I won't talk about. There are still things and it's not because I'm trying to present that best face, but because I believe we need those boundaries. I thought about this. So
Mhm.
I packed up, sold a bunch of things, threw a lot of things away back in March when I hit the road and found a roll of film. If we'll go to the way back machine, like from an old
Mhm.
camera, just a roll of film that I'd never had developed and a bunch of old pictures. And I remember as a kid, I was a horrible photographer. And so you take the 12 pictures or the 24 pictures that came on the roll, you'd take it to the drugstore, you'd wait a week, you'd get them back. And there'd be like maybe 2 photos that were good. And so you'd either put the rest of them away and never do anything with them or throw them away. Well, I had kept a bunch of them. And I was thinking about social media that we still have the bad pictures tucked away somewhere, but we haven't given the rest of the world the ability to see them. And that's the difference with social media, is that there is this pressure to keep this curated, whatever perfect even means. And I mean, good grief, what is that? But that perception and that persona needs to always be buttoned up and always professional and always perfect. My life is messy, right? Like I came here honestly. I got to this point honestly. And so it's every day it's making a choice to say something or nothing, because I think there's moments where silence is more important than the words or the nonsense coming out of my mouth. And silence can be a gift in its own way. And also taking that feedback for what it's worth. You know, a lot of people have become successful in our business in a lot of different ways. And the path that worked for someone else may not be the one for you. And I think even bigger is, what does success even mean? I said earlier I was on my path to the C-suite. Trip to the C-suite in our industry also means a huge paycheck and a lot of working hours and a lot of travel and a lot of sacrifice. I didn't want to do any of those things because I value my time on this planet, and myself and my relationship with myself and the people in my life, that I didn't want to make those sacrifices. So what did I sacrifice? A really big paycheck, hopefully for a while, right? Like it's coming, but nothing comes without compromise, and really having to look at yourself and your life and your priorities, and what do you value, and where are you willing to make edits. And no shame and no judgment to those people who are on their path and choose to stay right where they are. All of this that I'm doing is very uncharacteristic of me. No one is more surprised than I am by what I'm doing. But I just got to the point where I couldn't not do it.
Thank you so much for that, Meg. This is not where I saw this talk going at all. I mean, there are pieces of it that I definitely wanted in there. I totally wanted to talk about how you hate the insurance industry.
Yeah.
Because I know there's so many of us out there that would go, girl, me too. And that's, what led you. I'm just going to plug this real quick. And maybe we just need a follow-up, podcast to this, because there's so much that I feel in your journey connects with, specifically, not with producers, not with agency leaders, but the account managers that are trying to find their success in the industry, the college students that are even trying to find their place in this industry when they see and hear us talk about how awesome it is for us, and they're trying to find that too, but they don't know quite how they fit in yet, because they're still the awkward little ducklings. You're in a conversation that we had, I think more candidly, it was your disdain for the industry and whatever your experience was there that led you on, I think it was like a year-long journey of discovery for yourself to figure out what exactly it was that you wanted to do with your time. And it sounds like even out of that year-long of just taking a step back professionally, now that you're back in the game, you're still figuring out. It's a constant evolution, and you're surprising yourself every day. So I really hope whomever is listening, whether you're in the insurance industry or not, that the takeaway from this is nothing's perfect. It's all messy. Every step, even if it's a wrong step, is still a step. You're not stopping, basically. And, it did the years in the industry in terms of technicality and everything, highly important. And you were saying yourself that you need people to know what your experience is because you need them to hire you. Yes. But, and I mean, I want to hire you, and I'm I'm not even focused on your years in the industry. I'm just focused on your message. And I'm going to keep going back to my half on light bulb here. And I'm thinking about a light bulb that's in a bathroom over there, the one that flickers, and sometimes it's on and sometimes it's not. I'm going to go back to that, and that the way you promote yourself and the way you speak about your experience in the industry and the way you speak about the impact that you still want to make on the industry and pull people into the industry, even though, it was like a weird experience for you. That's, where I find your credibility. I'm not finding it maybe it's because I'm looking in the wrong direction, but for me right now, I'm not finding the credibility in the 21 years. I'm finding the credibility through the way you're talking about your 21 years. And I think that's what I was trying to convey to the little girl with the resume is it's not the amount of internships you've had. It's about the experience that you got out of it. What lessons did you learn from it? So I hope listeners take out of it, like, professionally and personally, it is what you make it. And you make it what it is because of how honest you are with yourself and with others.
Yeah. And I think, when Meg had just mentioned we all define success differently. And I had actually heard, I don't know if this was something that one of our faculty members, Victor Paleo, said in a recent class. And I don't know if this is his quote or if he quoted somebody else. So in the meantime, I'm just going to cite this to Vic Paleo. It said, your legacy is not about your titles or your designations, but it's about the impact that you've had on the others within your field. And that, like, I wrote that down in the middle of class because I said, yes, this is why I'm in this role. This is why, just like you, I've taken a big pay cut from one company to another because that's what success is to me. It's to have a job where I can feel satisfied because I've had a lasting impact on someone else. So I think that's great that more and more people are recognizing that value.
Yeah, I love that. It's a beautiful quote, and I think it's a sentiment that I often hear expressed by people at the end of their career. So they're more reflective, they're looking back and they have a spirit of giving back. I think I'm going to say the young people, the generations newer, more recently joining the industry, have an awful lot to give, even if they don't have the decades of quote unquote experience behind them. And I am, the life they've already lived is nothing like I will experience if I live to be 100. And so I think it's our responsibility of those who have been here maybe a little longer to hold that space for them to leverage all of that wisdom that they already have. And it may not be technical wisdom, but awareness of self and priorities and self-advocacy and a lot of the things that it's taken me a lot more years to learn. They've got that figured out, and access to a whole lot more information, a whole lot more, ideas and opinions and methods. And I mean, it's just an exceptionally different experience that the younger generations are having in our industry. And we can hang on for dear life to the way we've always done it. And there will be people who do, organizations who do, and it's becoming really clear who they are. Dustin mentioned technology. Obviously, you have to have one and a half eyes on technology, but the people piece is the culture. That's what builds your culture. And kids these days will not work for a company with a broken culture. They just won't. And so
you kids these
I know,
days.
get off my lawn. No, it's come to my lawn, throw up your, put up your tent. Let's have a barbecue and tell stories, right? Like
get back to it takes a village. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know how we got so far away from that, like, I feel just personally when my kids talk to the neighbors' kids, I'm like, don't do that. What are you doing? You're talking to strangers. Like, when did we get away from taking a village to raise a community, basically?
Yeah. And we've said a lot. It's a big topic in our industry that our industry does have an aging out problem. We've got all of this great experience and but we're missing a lot of that young perspective. And so I really hope to see, just in what we've talked about too, that shift. And maybe if we stop trying to highlight the experience and celebrate the experience, or the years, the tenure, so to speak, stop celebrating the tenure so much and embrace that individual experience. I think that's going to be what we need to do to welcome others into this career path and promote others into this career path. So I'm really, and again, I don't want to say excited. I'm going to pull up a thesaurus and look up some new words for excited, but I'm really jazzed. I'm really stoked, ecstatic. I'm optimistic now after this conversation, I'm genuinely a lot more optimistic that we have solved some of the world's problems. No, but we've identified some of what needs to happen in order to bring this new generation into the
Yeah.
fold. So thank you
No,
for that.
This has been a super fun conversation, you guys. A little eye-opening, a little uncomfortable, but that's okay.
Isn't that what we do here? Isn't that
That
what we
is
do
what we
here?
do.
Yeah.
You know, I'm
Mhm.
gonna. This just keeps on going and going and
Right?
going, like the Energizer Bunny.
Mhm.
It's. I'm all about visceral responses. Like, how did that just make me feel?
Mm.
And following my gut on that, because 9 times out of 10, your gut's gonna be right. The other part of it is probably anxiety.
Mm.
That tenth of the
Mhm.
time. But there comes this moment where somebody is referred to as an expert eventually, hopefully, maybe in their professional career, they're referred to as an expert. And I think that uh, triggers a little bit of an identity crisis. Like, I'm an expert. Am I done? I didn't realize I was done. I thought I was just making another move, kind of situation. And speaking to you today, Meg, I think there's something that viscerally in my head was like being called an expert is it's like I'm talking to myself at the moment. Being called an expert doesn't mean you're done.
Mm.
And if you forget that, or if you think being called an expert means you're done and now it's time for you to pass your information on, I think that's where some of this resume, well, let me tell you about the years of my experience and everything that I've done, and you forget to stop, or you forget to keep learning. You forget to keep building on your experiences. You maybe forget that just because you're regarded maybe as an expert doesn't mean that you might be wrong about something and you can still learn and grow from that. And I think we see that a lot right now, especially with cancel culture
Mm. Yeah.
and things that have
Mhm.
happened in people's past. There's a little bit of a weirdness right now. Like, you're afraid to do anything because how might it impact you in your future? And we're forgetting that we're just in a constant state of learning right now. And being called an expert doesn't mean you're not still learning. So that I don't know where that fits into this conversation, but that's like this parting thought that I had. Like, I regard Meg as this expert in terms of confidence building. I love watching you on social media. I love every time we have a conversation. But then hearing you talk to, like, I'm sitting here like, Meg's got her crap together. She's got herself together. What am I going to speak to this woman about? She's amazing. I can't add anything to this. But then hearing you talk about how you're still on your journey and it's a messy journey and you're a learning expert. You're still going through the motions and I love it.
Thank you. This has been a fill me up conversation, a great way for me to spend some of my time today and to get to know Kat in this way, who's newer in my world, and Dustin, to get to know you more deeply. I think it's the reason I started my own podcast was because I was having these beautiful conversations one on one, and I thought, how lovely would it be if women could just sort of be a fly on the wall and be part of them by recording them. So look at you. It's really cool. Look at us. Yeah.
Look at us.
I can't not say we talked about imposter syndrome earlier. There's a thing as women, and I'm fleshing this out in a bigger sense as a more of a signature talk or a keynote. And it's on some of the bad advice we've been given as women over the years, things that we've accepted to be true that I don't think in this day and age really serve us very well. And one of them that comes up in the imposter syndrome work that I do is the concept of faking it till you make it. And I love the idea of pushing yourself and trying new and scary things. But I think the problem with that is no one taps you on the shoulder and says, okay, cool, you've made it. Now you can stop wearing someone else's shoes, being someone that you're not. And that's the damage, I think, that concept of being someone that you're not until you feel confident and comfortable enough being yourself, because the world just doesn't work like that. It's that expert thing again, where what does it take? An industry accolade, a designation? Obviously, that's, a huge part of the work that you're doing. But when can we acknowledge through our own lens and when we look in the mirror and say, you know what? This is how I want to show up in the world right now for the people that I love and the people that I want to help through the work that I do, regardless of your role. I'm ready to be that person. I love the women in my network who are 25 at that place, and the women who are at 65 at that place, and all of us in between. And that's the beauty of this time, I think, that we're in, is those stories are exceptionally powerful, and that experience, however we're seeing the world right now, is really powerful. Period. Thank you both.
Thanks so much,
Period.
Meg. Period. That's where this,
I know.
yeah. Like, how do you end this conversation? I think that's why we keep going, because we're just, discovering more and more pieces of the conversation as it's going, and it's really hard to cut off.
Aww.
I feel like I need to talk to Meg now every Monday before I start my work week, so that I feel this sense of empowerment and motivation. So really, from the bottom of my heart, thank you.
Absolutely.
And right back at you. These are you. It's a great conversation. Fundamentally, I'll make it easy to you make me look good, but it's also, I think, speaks to how you show up in the world and your willingness to go to these places because it's not safe. It's risky. And what are we as women but traditionally, stereotypically risk averse? So it's so interesting being in this industry, having this conversation in this moment.
All right, you guys, this has been fun, very interesting, very light. I was going to say very lighthearted, but that's not true. I don't know where that came from. Very deep-hearted, honestly. So I've thoroughly enjoyed the conversation. Meg, thank you so much. Kat, always a pleasure.
Great to see you. Great to be with you.
Thanks.
Thanks for hanging around for another awkward conversation in insurance.
Stay tuned for new episodes from Awkward Insurance wherever you listen to your podcasts. And be sure to check out the National Alliance on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, or at scic.com.
Now go forth and be awkward.
Toodles!
Toodles!